Hi folks, it's me, India Celestine from Centro Spiritista Fe Esperanza Caridad here in the Bronx. And bringing another video today. This video is going to be a little bit different. I'm just going to flow in this video because I felt compelled this morning as I woke up, like this restlessness came over me and this need it came over me, that I felt that I think it's a little essential for me as a spiritualist, to just let people know a little bit about me as a person, as a spiritualist, as a media unidad, as someone that oftentimes here in the tri-state region is elsewhere. Sometimes you might encounter me and stuff, and maybe I'll be able to calm some of the misconceptions that people might have, not only of me, but in general of some spiritualists and stuff, and just give you a little background story surrounding me. And I'm just going to be very candid, very open. I don't profess to be this holier and thou person. I do curse. That's just my way sometimes punctuating certain things. I know I need to work on that. Um, but I just want to give you a brief, historical stuff surrounding me, my story, how I began in my journey and stuff. My name is India Celestine. I grew up in a small town in the upstate region of New York. Both my parents were present in my life. Thank God. I have many siblings. Uh, my spiritual journey started fairly, very young for me. Um, Growing up, I had a very tumultuous upbringing. Very tumultuous. I suffered a great deal. I went through a lot of trials and tribulations in my upbringing. Oftentimes, I felt isolated, alone, and in that aloneness, in that awkward aloneness, somehow, some way, I was always compelled and pushed and prodded towards certain things. I was always questioning life. I was always questioning everything around me. I was always very intuitive. Like I understood that I came from poverty. I understood that I came from very humble beginnings. But I also understood deeper components of my state of upbringing, whereas I also understood that my mother suffered in silence, you know, and my father was often never there because he wanted to provide a better upbringing for his family, you know. But so I spent a lot of time on my own and always deep contemplation. I've always been a profound thinker. I was always reading. I was always, I had this restlessness um, with me coming up. Like I felt like I didn't quite belong. I felt I didn't quite connect. I felt that there was just so many different things going on in my upbringing that I just didn't quite understand. I do come from trauma. Um, I don't know if in that trauma somehow, some way, it played a major role in my my spirituality, but to some degree, I do understand and say that it was influential. Because in my solitude, my sadness, and my trial and tribulations that I was undergoing, I had to seek something that would give me some measurable hope and give me strength to continue to move forward and not give up. And it was particularly very difficult. Like I felt isolated, I felt powerless, I felt like I didn't quite belong. In that restlessness, I was just trying to seek something. I would escape into the woods, I would escape into the cemetery, I would go for long walks, just quiet contemplation and solitude was always around me. And little did I know, in that quiet contemplation and solitude what I perceived to be me, myself being alone, I was actually always in the company of spirits. I didn't know about spirituality. I didn't know about church. I didn't know about religion. Um, other than like a neighbor that was obsessive going to church and criticizing my family because we subsequently my family didn't bring us to church or appeared in church. I don't know what was her problem, but you know, eventually, um, like I grew very close to my grandmother, my late grandmother, and through my late grandmother, I came to know about spirituality. I came to know about the Bible. I was introduced to the Bible. I was introduced to the notion of a God, of Jesus Christ, of and the stories surrounding the Bible became my sustenance. It gave me hope. It gave me clarity. It gave me some measurable solace and comfort, knowing that my pain and suffering was not one that I endured alone. That there were other people that have also encountered trials and tribulations in life. That are other people around me that might not comprehend the suffering that I'm encountering or that I could identify with what I was enduring. But to some degree, they had their trials that they had to undergo, you know. And I honestly feel that in that suffering, in that what I feel was abandonment and confusion and just one trial after another and just being misunderstood and just going through a lot of stuff growing up, I found myself. I found God. I found Jesus. I found a world of spirits that were constantly around me. I couldn't quite identify what it was, but it was an inkling that I had within myself that I was not alone. And as I started reading the Bible, certain things started happening and shifting within me, Um, I was always in a constant state of perpetual prayer and meditation and contemplation and stuff. Um, but I also understood that there was something quite different about me. Um, I saw things different. I felt things different. I picked up on things differently. But to me, I didn't quite feel that how I was as an individual was nothing that I would equate as something special. I was under the impression that everybody saw what I was seeing. Everybody felt what I was feeling, And come to find out that that was not the case, That there are some people amongst us that are born with specific traits and gifts that make them quite unique, you know. Um, and For whatever reason, God saw in His mercy or His kindness or His, I don't know, He saw um, to give me these gifts. To give me these gifts of mediumship, to be able to see and sense spirit and just be a conduit or a medium where the spirits can transmit their messages uh, to folks in my midst, to bring words of comfort, solace, comfort, clarity in people's lives, to be able to reaffirm people's faith and God and spirit and angels and to continue to strive and be better human beings, better accountable for how you conduct your life, how you live your life, how you lead your life, and the contributions that you make to this world and this society. And in my journey as a human being, um, I encountered the teachings of Allan Kardec. They were very transformative in my life. These Many of the books of Allan Kardec, the Spiritist book, the Mediumship book, the Gospel According to Spiritism, really, really transformed my life. In the sense that through these books, many of the questions that I had surrounding life in general were answered, you know. And I really taken a deep, profound, uh, um, not only liking, but I took on a more proactive role in my spirituality, and the role that I play in that, and my ability to want to connect and create and nurture and cultivate a relationship with God, my spirits. One of the most influential figures in my life was my late grandmother. And my late grandmother, she was a medium, a spiritist, intuitive person. I didn't know. I was just under the impression that, like most people in Puerto Rican households, she was just a diehard Catholic, you know, doing her little rosaries, having her little altar, you know. Um, but I knew that there was something much more deeper, much more profound about this woman, you know. And, I come from a very large household. But for whatever reason, my grandmother, she often I spent many summers with my grandmother um, in the upstate New York. She required of my father to drop me off, and I was always a little intrigued by that. I was like, why out of all my brothers and sisters would you want me to stay with you? But I've never questioned it because to me, those moments that I spent with my grandmother, those meant a great deal of me. They nourished my soul. She built up my resilience, my strength. She validated me. She showered me with love and affection, and I really needed that in that tumultuous time in my life, in my upbringing, in my formative years, and you know, it was very profound, my connection with my grandmother. So much so that I always yearned and looked forward to every summer that I spent with her. Um, there was just this peace, this grace about her. But there was this resilience about her, this strength that she had with her. I couldn't quite pinpoint what it was. Um, Later on, as I was growing up, I came to find out that she subsequently she passed while I was still very, very young. And she passed away in a moment in my life where I was coming to my senses with the reality of what I was being subjected to in my upbringing. And was coming to the realization that what I was encountering was a grave injustice. And that what I endured was nothing short of abuse. What I endured was nothing short of a grave injustice that was being committed to a child, you know, to a child that profoundly loved um, its parents, to a child that was uh, not only sensitive, intuitive, impressionable, but a child that was developing and trying to cultivate something very, very beautiful within myself, you know. And these trials and tribulations that I endured and stuff, came to a head because I started unraveling. My life started unraveling. Whereas the restlessness that I was feeling within myself got so profound, so deep, that I no longer wanted to exist in this world. You know, wanted to leave this world. My soul felt restless. You know, and and then in that time, around that time when those thoughts started surfacing within myself, my grandmother subsequently passed away. In her passing away, it left a profound void in my life. So much so that I no longer felt safe in this world. And I grew angry, I grew distraught because I prayed, I meditated, and I didn't quite understand how God could take someone like that from this world. She was a beacon of hope for me, a beacon of strength for me. How could something like that happen? And for many years, I lost myself in that grief, in that sadness, in that anger, in that rage. I I attributed it to, like I just displaced my anger. I conducted myself in a self-destructive manner. Like and I lost myself in that rage and that anger. And it was not. It was many years later before I came to the realization that, you know, something within me said to me, if your grandmother was here right now, would she be proud of how you're leading your life? And I said to myself, no, she would not be proud of me. And thus began my spiritual journey. Thus began my connection with my spirits. Thus began a long-standing uh, um, a long-standing challenge for me, to want to connect with my grandmother, to want to delve deeper in my faith, in my convictions, to learn more. I studied religions, I studied spiritualities, I lost myself in self-help books, um, related to healing and trauma, and I just wanted to be a better person. I wanted to be I didn't want to lose myself in that rage and that anger, because I knew in my heart of hearts I was a good person, and I knew that somehow, some way, in this world, I came with a purpose. I came to contribute something in this world. Whether I knew it or not, it was irrelevant. And I needed to find out what that was, you know, to give me greater depth, greater meaning, but also to give me hope, to be able to stand firm in this world and push myself to overcome many of the challenges that I encountered. And, I began to read Allan Kardec's books. I began to study it. I began to study Spiritism. I began to study mediumship. I began to study philosophy. I began to study the mechanisms of spirit and how the spiritual world worked. And, I started integrating many of the practices within my life. I started going to church. I started meditating and praying. I taught myself how to say the Our Father, the Hail Mary, how to recite the Rosary. I was always looking for ways and disciplines that would assist and facilitate me in being able to be, elevated, or elevate myself further as a human being, refine myself further as a human being, with the hope that somehow, some way, that I would receive a message from my grandmother, or some type of confirmation of validation that she was around me. And many years ago, I moved to New York City, and that's where really not only did my story begin, but many of the challenges that I was confronted with also began. Um, this is where I was exposed to the first time of what a Centro Espiritista was, a Spiritist center was, and subsequently, like I immersed myself in that Spiritist center. That became like a second home to me. I learned a great deal from many people, many older people that were working and laboring spiritually for many years. Though my tasks were very meager, I was only there like to clean up, to set up the table, to set up the perfume waters, or maybe tend to the spirits when they went into possession and stuff. But those formative years was very important to me in my development, because I learned to take a greater interest in what it entails to be a spiritualist. The importance of selflessness, the importance of helping someone that's down and out, someone that needs clarity, somebody that you would reinstill their hope and reaffirm their faith, and how important that was. And I look back at those experiences and realize that in my formative years, growing up, many of those things were denied to me. I didn't have help. I didn't have nobody really to turn to other than my grandmother. And, I was a very solitary kid, and somehow, some way, I had to live life on life terms and confront every situation, every challenge head on, or lose myself, in emotions and anger and rage and stuff. There was no middle ground. There's no reprieve, you know. Um, and, I had to be courageous. I had to find the strength within. I had to find the reserve and the strength within. I couldn't count on nobody, you know. I had to make it happen, or else I was gonna lose myself, and in the centro spirituale, in the temples, I saw the work that was being done, and in part I was mesmerized. I was dumbfounded at what I saw, like how people were able to remove spirits from people that were misaligned, how they were able to lead spirits into the light, into a school, to be able to evolve, to be able to reflect on the errors that they created, and the turbulence and the misguidance and just the overall ignorance, and how they impacted people's lives. And I've seen how transformative it was to see somebody come in week after week, sullen, filled with sadness, depression, and just this sense at any given moment this person was about to lose hope. And somehow, through a spiritual session or intervention, unexpectedly, that veil would be lifted from them, and their faith would be reaffirmed, and they would feel renewed. They would feel liberated. To me, that was a very beautiful experience, and I often had those very beautiful experiences on an ongoing basis, and I'm very grateful for having been given the opportunity to be able to experience that. And I realized right then and there that I knew that would be my passion. That's what I want to do. I want to be able to help people, even if the help was denied to me. I want to be able to reaffirm people's faith in God and renew people's hope that tomorrow will be better than today. And there is a thing called change. There is a thing called redemption. There is a thing called grace. Um, you know that to give people the encouragement and the support that they need to keep fighting, to keep confronting each challenge, each trial, each tribulation, and see what these tribulations are trying to teach you. And just change the dynamics of suffering, into a tool of empowerment. You know, um, you know, as I develop as a spiritist, I came to realize and take a greater appreciation for the teachings of Allan Kardec, and I put myself out there. Not only to learn, but to participate in other misas, and to refine further my techniques as a medium, as a spiritist. And I encounter all types of people from all walks of life, but I also encounter a great deal of challenges, you know. And I was oblivious to that. I was under the impression that people that follow faith systems, or they have a specific devotion to spirit or the spiritual world, or God or divinity or Isha, or that they would value that connection, and they would never desecrate it. They would never utilize it as a means or a tool of self-service. I encounter a great deal of exploitation in my ability to want to develop as a medium. I was under the mistake and ignorance that in order for me to cultivate my gifts as a medium, in order to cultivate, that I needed to be relegated to seeking out someone and put that responsibility in their hands to guide me appropriately. And I came to find out that that's not the case. And I found that out the hard way. I found that out through being subjected to all manner of exploitation, to being immersed in traditions that I, quite frankly, didn't identify with, but it was put before me as a prerequisite, almost like as a prerequisite for me to be able to cultivate and develop. No misas were done for me unless I had to undergo Santeria, rites of passage on, you need to receive your collares, your beads, you need to receive your warriors, you need to receive this, receive that. And I was like, that's not what I came here for, but subsequently, that's what came of it. Eventually, I started receiving one thing after another, and I lost myself in the whole politics of Santeria, the whole politics of these other faith systems where, is rooted on a hierarchy of people that you need to answer to, that you need to bow down to, that you need to throw yourself to, that, I started losing my sense of self, my sense and my ability to live a self-directed life, my sense of being able to perceive what my spirits were indicating to me, and to properly discern situations, to discern people. And I found myself feeling once again alienated, frustrated, angry, and it magnified already things that I was already encountering in my own personal life, my own personal demons within. It reminded me too much of the oppression that